This video is part of the Microsoft Virtual Academy. In this session, we will cover the software update management capabilities that have been improved in Configuration Manager 2012. The summary of this session is very straightforward. We're going to talk about what you've asked for and what we were doing in Config Manager 07 and what could be improved, and then how we've responded by improving this feature set in Config Manager 2012. Let's first talk about the feedback we've taken from software update management in Config Manager 2007. Software update management in Config Manager 2007 was one of the top 5 for what we call needed improvement. And there were some categories that we asked customers to evaluate the product on, and these were focused around update cleanup, auto approval, supersedence, reporting, and the user experience. In Config Manager 07, we built on top of WSUS, which allowed us to incorporate the Microsoft Update or Windows Update services and state comparisons of updates, and use our explicit scheduling and targeting of our client to deploy updates. The administrative console experience was not perfect, and I think you'll see through this session we've gotten some significant improvements to that area. So some key investments for Config Manager 2012 were primarily around configuring, deploying, and maintaining updates. From the concept of configuring updates, we wanted to ensure that we were superseding and providing update support for newer versions of an update, and when it replaced a previous update, we allowed ourselves to define that relationship inside of the console. We wanted to improve the software update administrative experience by creating and embracing the role-based administration capability and a software update administrator role, effectively a patch management role. We wanted to improve the client agent settings and ensure that there was more accurate and more efficient collection and state comparison done between desired advertised patch level and what was actually inventoried on a machine. And then finally, we wanted to ensure that we supported the migration from Config Manager 07 to Config Manager 2012 for those organizations that had invested in the software update management feature. From the deployment perspectives of our key investments for software update management, we wanted to simplify what we called update groups, and we wanted to automate deployments where possible by adding auto deployment filter rules, and improve the end user experience to provide them an ability to say, I'm actually presenting right now, don't give me a patch, as one example. And then finally, we wanted to talk more and provide improvements around the ability to maintain the software update landscape. And this provided us some opportunities to improve the in-console viewing, monitoring, and alerting. Concepts like thresholds and in-console alerts would be more effective at providing that software update administrator role more accurate and viable information that allow them to be much more effective in responding to the environment that is relevant for that situation. We also wanted to improve on the reporting of the actual update landscape and ensure that the updates are timely, accurate, and where things like auto remediation is happening, we wanted to capture that as well. We also wanted to assist in the maintenance and support of the content library. And so as things like updates moved off of the landscape and weren't used anymore, we wanted to ensure we supported the cleanup and removal of those. When we talk about supersedence of updates, a publisher, might be Microsoft, it might be a third party, can expire or supersede a software update with a newer version. In Config Manager 07, the behavior was we would automatically expire the superseded updates. But this wasn't always the perfect scenario because sometimes there would be a requirement based on applications or different users out there to have that 07 or that previous update that was superseded remain available. So in Config Manager 2012, you can control this supersedence behavior. Here you see a rules wizard on the right side, and it allows us to define the supersedence behavior by selecting either to immediately expire a superseded software update or do not expire a superseded software update until the software update is superseded for a specified period. In this particular screenshot, you're seeing a period of 3 months being defined. Talking about software update management and the administrative role within RBA, we have a requirement to embrace this feature set. We have a new feature in Config Manager 2012 called the role-based administration capability. And this allows organizations to define administrative users and then apply templates against those users for a scope of control or particular roles for that administrator's function. We have adopted that for software update management. And so the concept behind this was we wanted to limit the software update administrator to only software update related actions. And you can see on the right side a screenshot of the permissions for the software update manager role. But you can see there is requirements across quite a few areas of the product, but things specifically like alerts, collections, distribution points, as well as creating and managing software update packages and templates were key to the software update management role being allowed to do. Here you see an ability inside of that role to define who has this role assigned to them. And you can see on the bottom we can limit them to certain collections or scopes to ensure that they can only do their work based on the areas that they're found to be in the organization. For an example, we have a software update administrator in this screenshot who is based in Europe and can only manage software updates in Europe for the desktops in those European collections. This will ensure that that user does not go outside of their boundaries of their role and do additional administrative work against locations outside of their responsibility. Client agent settings. This was also an area we tried to provide improvements on. We have provided an ability now to have a new UI experience. In the past, client agent settings were site-wide. Those are now based at the collection level. And we can actually get quite specific about different client policy behaviors or different client policy settings within the actual client we install. This is applicable for software update management. And you can see here on the right a screenshot that allows us to customize when software updates are available or not, what kind of time windows we would want to say they're effective for, business weeks, weekends, out of hours. Should we install mandatory updates or not? And time from deadline we might want to allow for before enforcement comes into effect. For example, kind of a real-world example, we might want to provide a little bit more flexibility to maybe the executive team or the leadership of the company, and provide them a little bit more flexibility for when they can have deadlines passed or what kind of working hours we would expect them to be going on. But this allows us to customize settings for different systems on the same site without creating multi-tiered primary organizational hierarchy. This simplifies the organization's hierarchy and the site infrastructure and even servers, as well as the complexity of administering a multi-tiered security model. This is truly one of the ways we are simplifying the administration and unifying the infrastructure of Config Manager 2012. Migration, moving people from Config Manager 07 to Config Manager 2012. But as the installation of Config Manager 2012 is completed, one of the things that can be done is a migration of software updates. We can migrate packages, deployments, lists, and templates, and we can persist the update content availability from 07 through DP point sharing. Distribution point sharing is a new feature of Config Manager 2012 that allows a Config Manager 2012 infrastructure to utilize existing Config Manager 07 distribution points for the process of migration. An important point to make out here is software update point products and category settings must not be the same on CM07 and CM12. You can see on the right a collection of summary screens that shows the reviews of objects that will be migrated, and you can see in there things like software updates is included in that migration wizard. So let's now talk about the second key investment area around deployment. The first was simplifying update groups. We've improved the ability to search to find updates. We've improved the ability to create lists and deployments to combine those into what we call update groups. We have added updates to groups automatically when they're deployed, and so that simplifies the process of managing what updates are in what update groups. And now groups can be deployed and or used for aggregate compliance. With respect to automated deployments, this is a very important feature, primarily focused in a use case scenario around forefront endpoint protection, but the concept is very simple. Based on certain products, severity levels, categories, languages, however you slice an update category, we can automate the processing and deployment of those updates. These can be individually scheduled or run manually, and for things like a forefront, they might be done daily or even every 4 hours or 8 hours. But effectively, these filter rules allow us to create update groups that can be further edited manually or automatically through the process. But the bottom line is very simple. We wanted to create an ability for certain types of updates to automatically flow from their update catalogs into the managed client systems. And the driving force behind this was a security scenario with Forefront. The end user experience. This is something we've all had happen to us, where we have a balloon pop and we're sitting in front of a customer or we're sitting in front of our manager, and software update requirements have been established and a deadline has been hit or passed, and it was a fairly negative experience, and it didn't actually bode well with end users. Well, now we can actually customize this process, and we have given the user an ability to, in fact, have some suppression capabilities. And we can provide that console experience to them on their local machine through the Software Center that allows them to say, actually, I'm in presentation mode right now. Please don't do anything with me as far as balloon pops. Here you see a screenshot of the Software Center, and you can see the collection of updates that are set for this particular target. You can see they have abilities to be scheduled and deferred, or even richer experiences around rescheduling when it's more convenient for that user. We also have an ability in the Software Center for the user to define their work window. You can see here an example of where we can say a user can define their business hours, their days of week, and that is not just for the time of day in the week they work, but also for their power management and for their maintenance of systems. So let's now talk about maintenance, and I think it's very important to understand what we've done in the back end. As the Config Manager 07 environment has moved to Config 2012, there's some pretty big shifts we've made in the back and some heavy lifting that's going to make the process a lot more efficient. Let's begin with talking about in-console views and alerts. Critical information is now in the console. Compliance and deployment views per update or update group are now there, and there are detailed states of all assets targeted within an update deployment if that granularity level is required. Where possible, we have also done interpretation of error code because in the past we've had feedback that there were certain error codes that were a little generic and didn't really help the administrator get to the root cause of the issue. We also provide alerts and views in the console for hierarchy-wide software update point sync status. One of the very common points of feedback from customers was that they didn't actually have a good understanding of if the updates had been synchronized around to the different site roles that were running software update point. And so we now provide that sync status right in the console. We also now in 12 provide alerts for synchronization failures if compliance has not been met. Similar to how our settings management feature operates, we can define thresholds and we can provide in-console alerting based on that threshold not being met. Reporting is extremely important. I think software updates is probably one of the most critical aspects of an IT's reporting structure. And we now have extensive state and compliance information in out-of-box reports. In the past, we had a collection of reports that were good and very detailed, but didn't report accurately to the business in the terminology or verbiage that they were looking to see. It took a bit more dissection and interpretation of the report logging to allow us to actually be much more relevant to the business and talk in the language they're looking to hear. So now the updates are optimized with new content to reduce replication and storage. We now have expired updates and content automatically being cleaned up from the console and the infrastructure. When the software update point synchronizes with Windows Update, we mark updates as expired in the Configuration Manager database, and those expired updates are deleted by what's called a maintenance task. Content for those expired updates is removed from the distribution points and cleaned up, recovering space. Now, you can spend less time cleaning up the old expired updates and reduce all the clicking with simple automation. You can own the change control and manage supersedence with automatic cleaning up of superseded if desired. We can stay in the console and review there our in-console alerts and different thresholds or synchronization status, whereas in the past we had to be going to look at client or server logs or additional web-based reports. And you can reduce those you rebooted me phone calls by providing a richer end-user experience that allows the users to feel much more involved and engaged and in control of their own experience from IT. So some things you can do next are downloading the evaluation experience of Config 2012. We have the virtual machine test drive program that's available. You can look at our TechNet virtual labs up on TechNet, as well as participate in some of our social channels, the community evaluation program. You can be following us on Twitter, as well as on our blog and corporate website. Thanks for your time. This was a summary of the software update management features of Configuration Manager, and this has been brought to you by the Microsoft Virtual Academy. Thanks for your time.